We're Hassani and Danielle Pettiford, and we're a real couple with real problems who almost called it quits.
I was very frustrated. I became very disconnected, very jaded and cold.
We have 4 children, going on 20 years of marriage, and we practice what we preach.
Our mission, to change the way couples relate to one another and teach them the skills needed to improve the quality of their relationships.
This is the Couples Academy Show.
Good morning. Good morning. Hello, everyone. You are watching the Couples Academy show. My name is Lakeisha Hines, and I'm so happy to be here with you the second day in a row. So, for those of you who are just joining us, we have a new topic today. It is 11 common patterns of verbal abuse. I think that we all are going to learn something new today. I know when I was researching this topic, I learned something new. This is one of those things that sometimes people aren't able to recognize that what they're experiencing actually is verbal abuse. And so I think it will be eye-opening for some of you. And I'm looking forward to having this discussion with you today. But before we get started, I want to welcome Jaguar and Brent. Hello, LaShawn. Hi, Ralph. Hello, Marshawn. Lindsay. Good morning, Lindsay. I missed you too. Hey, Miss Jules, family. Good to see you as always. Hi, Tori. I already know Gonzalez will be here like any moment. So I'm just going to say good morning, my brother, because I know you're coming. And again, just want to say welcome, welcome, welcome. So before I get into some of the telltale signs about verbal abuse, I want to give you guys just a few facts about verbal abuse. It can sometimes happen out of nowhere in a relationship where, you had no prior warning, there was no notification or anything from your partner. Like you never saw any signs. They were always super sweet. They were always kind, never said an ill word to you or anything like that. So when they do say something that is verbally abusive, you're caught off guard because there were never any signs prior to you guys getting married or, during the dating process, or maybe you don't hear anything or see anything until you are already fully committed and invested in that relationship. So it can sometimes happen out of nowhere. Another fact is that verbal abuse usually, not always, but usually happens in private where no one else can intervene. It can become a regular form of communication within a relationship. And a lot of ways that causes that to happen is because if it is not checked immediately, when the first time it happens, if it's not shut down, if it's not addressed, if it is accepted, then it will continue. Often it will continue. So it can become a regular form of communication. For the person who is verbally abusive, they may not even be aware that they're being verbally abusive. The person who's being abused may not be aware that it's verbal abuse. So they don't check it. They don't correct it. So then that can create that pattern, and it can be a regular form of communication. The good thing is there is something that can be done about it, and we will get into that a little bit later. The next fact is that verbal abuse is often isolating because what it does is it literally tears away your self-esteem, and that makes it more difficult to reach out to a friend, because if you're feeling insecure, unsure of yourself, or that person makes you feel unworthy, they don't make you feel valuable, you do feel alone, and you do feel like you can't reach out to the people who love and care about you, your closest friends. A lot of times there's embarrassment as well, especially if it's been going on for an extended period of time. And if you don't know what to do about it, you don't know how to stop it, there may be some level of shame or embarrassment that might prevent you from reaching out to a friend or a loved one to communicate what's happening with you. Another fact is, oftentimes people who experience verbal abuse, they'll rationalize it in their mind, and they don't even realize, again, that it's an unhealthy form of communication, but they'll rationalize it and maybe, oh, well, they were just upset today, or they had a bad day today. They're not feeling good today. They're stressed out today. Work was really hard. The kids are driving us crazy or driving them crazy. So I understand. There are times where I even want to lash out. So I understand why they might want to lash out. Oh, they don't have the coping skills or strategies that I have. And that's why I'm able to contain myself, but they cannot. So we'll make excuses. We'll rationalize it in our mind because we don't want to end a relationship. We love the person, and we don't know how to fix it. So just because it's being rationalized or it's being explained away or justified or even understood, that doesn't make it any less distressing or mentally exhausting for the person who's being abused. It's actually extremely exhausting, and it is very stressful, and it can be very hurtful as well if there's been continued verbal abuse. Another fact, verbal abuse is a means of maintaining power and control over the other person who is in the relationship. They may take on this dominant position and use this as a way to keep you feeling insecure, unsure of yourself, which in turn will prevent you from speaking up and doing what you need to do to stop the verbal abuse. Last fact. Verbal abuse is not always blatantly obvious. There can be subtle forms of verbal abuse, and that makes it even more difficult to recognize. But it's okay because I'm going to help you today. If you can't tell whether your partner is being funny or belittling, here are a few telltale signs that you actually are being diminished or minimized or verbally abused in your relationship. So let's go. First one, threats. Now, when you think of the word threat, I think for most of us, the first thing that pops into our mind is like they're threatening to harm you in some way. That could be it, but it also could be threatening to leave. It could be threatening to take away something, threatening to not give you something. They're all different types of threats, but definitely if there is a threat, it can be verbal abuse. Because think about when someone threatens you, think about what you feel internally. Oftentimes there's fear, there is uncertainty, there is a lack of information, because what does that threat really mean? I understand the words, but what's behind the words? So there's a breakdown in communication. Usually there's a shutdown, there's a disconnect. And there are 4 things specifically that women need in a relationship. The number 1 is love. Then it's safety, security, and support. Well, if you're threatening me, that takes away my safety and that takes away my security. Therefore, I don't feel fulfilled and I can't thrive in this relationship. There are 4 things that men need in a relationship. They need respect, number 1. Then they need to be valued. They need to be appreciated. They need to be affirmed. So if their spouse or their partner is threatening them, that takes away the respect. And if they don't feel respected, they can't love. Now we have an issue. Okay. So threats, one of the main patterns, most common patterns of verbal abuse. Second one, name calling. Oh my gosh. This one, depending on the types of names that are being used to refer to the partner or spouse, can be so triggering, can cut extremely deeply, because let's say your partner or your spouse calls you something that your abusive ex-husband or ex-wife called you, or maybe an abusive parent or an abusive family member. If they call you that same name that that person called you, that can be triggering for that person. And again, that threatens the safety, security, the love, the respect, the ability to be vulnerable with one another. So the name calling, again, it can be triggering. And even if it's not, it can start triggers. Does that make sense? I mean, literally, it can cause you to begin to have triggers that you did not previously have. Again, this is something else that will really destroy and tear down your self-esteem if you're being called. And we're not talking about love names, right? We're not talking about sugar, honey, boo-boo, sweetie. We're not talking about those names. We're talking about B's and MFs and idiot and you're stupid and you're ugly or you're fat. We're talking about derogatory terminology when we're talking about name calling. Okay. Nothing that's sweet or kind. And it definitely can tear down a person's self-esteem. So the next one is condescension. This one is really, really tricky to identify sometimes, because condescension is like light sarcasm, or it's a sarcastic tone of voice. And it might be too, if let's say you're with someone who is the comedian in a relationship, because we all have one person who is more social, more outgoing, more talkative. They have a tendency to be more upbeat and bubbly and lively, and maybe they tell jokes often. So if you are constantly being the butt of your partner's jokes, that's condescension. It can start off funny, and then that lowers your defenses, right? But then over time, it can become belittling. So for example, you might be out at a restaurant with your partner, your spouse, and let's say you guys do a group date or a couples date. Or you could be there alone, doesn't matter. It's worse if there are other people around. But they say, no wonder you're always moaning about your weight, complaining about your weight. Look how clean your plate is. Ha ha ha. And they deliver it as if it's a joke, but really what they're doing is saying that I see why you're overweight. They're confirming that you are overweight or that you have a weight problem. Okay, so condescension, like I said, it can be tricky to spot, because again, it's sarcasm, and it if it's joke related, then it comes off like, oh, I'm just making a joke. And then the response when you bring it up might be, you're just too sensitive. Like we were just having a good time. I was just making a joke. And then they make you feel as if you're crazy because you have a problem with what it is that they said. But the truth is, when you're in a relationship with someone, if one of you has a problem, you both have a problem. If it bothers you, then it should bother you both. And in my relationship with my husband, if something bothers him, it bothers us. If it bothers me, it bothers us. So if you're saying to your partner that I don't like it when you make me the butt of your jokes, then the expectation is there should be a change in that behavior. That is the expectation. That is the desire. And that is exactly what should happen. Okay. Okay. So we got condescension. All right. So the next one is manipulation. This one can be somewhat easy to spot, unlike condescension. And the reason is someone might continuously like push your partner to do or say something that they're not always comfortable with. Manipulation, especially if you've communicated to your partner or your spouse that you're uncomfortable. If it's subtle, though, if the manipulation is subtle, then it can be difficult to detect. So manipulation is a tricky one. Sometimes it's easy, just depends, right? If you're with someone who has a controlling personality, it's much easier to spot. But if it's more subtle, then it might be difficult to detect. But they might turn a situation around and put the blame on the abused partner. So they might say something like, if you really love me, you wouldn't say or do that. If you guys get into some type of disagreement or something and they hurt your feelings and you go to them and you say, you really hurt my feelings when you said blah, 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 you did whatever. And they turn it around and say, well, I wouldn't have done that if you didn't do, I wouldn't have said that if you didn't say, or I said that because I did that because I said that because you, blah, 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 fill in the blank. That's manipulation. Right. So again, you just have to be really, really mindful of what your partner is saying to you, how they respond to you when you bring something to them that is uncomfortable, that hurts your feelings or doesn't make you feel good. So guys, you are watching a Couples Academy show. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back to continue these common signs.
Welcome to the Couples Academy app. The Couples Academy app is your go-to hub for how to do marriage right. Get started with our app today by perusing our amazing features that conveniently allow you to connect. This app is packed with powerful content and resources to help you grow and stay connected. With this app, you can watch our messages, find marriage resources, watch, listen, and read the real-life stories of restored couples, sign up for events, read articles and blog posts, stay up to date with push notifications, share your favorite messages via Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or email, and download messages for offline listening. For more information about the Couples Academy app, go to couplesacademy.org.
Good morning. Good morning. You're watching a Couples Academy show. My name is Lakeisha Hines. I had an opportunity to look in at some of the comments, and let me tell you something. You all literally, you give me life. I swear you do. You give me life. So Tori, you specifically said good morning, Tori Love. Good morning. Good morning. Hey, Nelly. Hi, Shannon. Rhoda from Connecticut. Hello. Hi, Derek. Miss Kimberly. Sharon Gonzalez. I already shouted you out, bruh. It's I know he's coming. Good morning. Hi, Debbie and Jody. Mrs. Carter. Good morning. Okay, so listen, this is the part that had me cracking up. Denise, thank you, sis. She's this is totally off topic, but I am so feeling these hair wraps on you. So again, you give me life. Thank you. Keep the compliments coming. Hi, DC Hector, Sandy, JD Pruitt, Mrs. Hall. Hello. Hi, Veronica. Thank you so much, you guys, for joining us. If I have an opportunity, I will try to get to some of your questions, but I definitely want to make sure that you guys have these common patterns of verbal abuse, and I want to make sure I get through those with you today. I don't know if we'll have a continuation of this tomorrow. I don't know. Brother Hassani has not mentioned, but I at least want to try to get through the bulk of them because there are 11 common patterns. All right. So the next one that we'll go into is criticism. And, I think we all, understand criticism, but we do know that criticism can be positive or it can be negative. And so the positive one is constructive criticism. And it's okay to provide constructive criticism when it is requested. Let me say that again. It is totally okay to request constructive criticism when it is requested. Okay. Now, we're talking about your love partner, your life partner, right? Business relationships, a little bit different. There's an expectation that you're going to provide constructive criticism when it's a business relationship. But your relationship with your spouse or partner, it is not a business relationship. It's personal. All of it's personal. Do we handle business together? Absolutely. But it is a personal relationship. So it has to be treated differently. It has to be treated delicately with kindness and compassion. So the constructive criticism, when it is invited, when it's requested, absolutely. Give it to me. But if I don't ask you and we don't have that agreement or arrangement, then pump the brakes, pause, keep it to yourself unless they ask, right? So the thing is, we do need to be honest with each other when we're in relationship. That's business and professional and personal. Sorry. We do need to be honest with each other, and being honest with your partner is totally healthy. But if you are constantly criticizing them negatively, if you are belittling of your spouse or significant other, that is not healthy. And over time, it destroys their self-esteem. So some examples of that might be saying, why are you so disorganized? I mean, that is totally a criticism. You are telling them you are disorganized, and even with the tone, depending on how they say it, can even tell them, I'm disgusted with you, I'm annoyed with you, I'm irritated, I'm frustrated, all of that in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words. Why are you so disorganized? It can do that much damage. Also, another example might be, I can always count on you to ruin our date nights. Okay, so that's not motivating your spouse or your partner to want to continue to go on date nights with you. And again, what is that doing for the self-esteem? Right? Okay, so date night went left, it's my fault. And every time it goes left, it's always my fault. So we just have to be so mindful, again, of criticisms. Constructive criticism, okay, when requested. Not okay when it's not requested. Which this now kind of leads us into the next one, which is demeaning comments. So if you're with someone who puts you down using demeaning comments that refer to maybe your race, your ethnicity, gender, your religion, your family, your upbringing, or anything where demeaning comments are being used, it's unhealthy. It doesn't even have to be consistent. If it happens one time, you can bet most likely it's going to happen again. And it should not become a part of your normal everyday communication. Because if you're with someone who truly loves and respects you, they won't use something that is an inherent part of you, something you cannot do anything about. They won't use that to put you down. So one of the most common ones, and this is not me picking on you men, but this is so common, right? And this is the first thing that literally is like popping in my head when, your man might say to you, just like a woman, you're always crying, you're always emotional, right? That is gender based, and it can be extremely hurtful. Sometimes you're just with an emotional person. It has nothing to do with gender. Maybe you are the reason why they're being emotional. On the flip side of that, oftentimes women, we will say to our man, husband, spouse, partner, whatever, we'll say to him, oh my gosh, you have no emotion. You're like a robot. Like you don't feel anything. I remember one time saying to my husband, like touching him, I'm like, oh, I'm just checking your pulse to see if you're breathing because you just don't have any type of emotion. And that was so not true, because what I discovered is that men do have emotions. They just express them differently. They just look differently. They show up differently, but they still have emotions. God put them in them just like he put them in us. But the expression of the emotions are different. Okay. And we have to get to a place where we accept one another's differences. The key to all of this, truthfully, guys, is because it's verbal abuse. What are we really talking about? We're talking about one of the 5 love languages, words of affirmation, right? It is the way that many people feel loved is through words. Hearing I love you just does something for you on your inside parts. It just makes you feel all warm and fuzzy. It makes you feel good when that person says, I love you. I appreciate you. You're beautiful. You're smart. You're handsome. You're fine. I'm so attracted to you. And you bring me so much joy. You're so smart. You're intelligent. When you say things like this to your partner or to your spouse, it boosts the self-esteem versus tearing it down. When you do give constructive criticism, you're sharing it in love. You're using your heart. You're being gentle and kind and compassionate, and you're being sensitive to the words that you're actually using when you're speaking to your partner or your spouse. So it's so, so important that we be mindful of our words, because once they leave your mouth, you cannot pull them back in. And the damage that is done sometimes is irreversible. So we just got to be mindful of how we communicate with one another. I want to tell you guys that I have some exciting news, because Foundry starts tomorrow. Foundry, the new 12-week session of Foundry, which is for the men, begins tomorrow. Mark your calendars, April the 27th. Unearthed starts next Wednesday. Ladies, you have almost a week, like a little over a week, to go ahead and sign up for Unearthed, which is specifically for our ladies. Also, 12-week program. It begins on May the 4th. Can you guys believe that like next week it will be May? We're almost at like half of 2022 being gone. It's crazy, right? So just wanted to let you know, Foundry starts tomorrow, April 27th. Unearthed begins May the 4th, Wednesday, May the 4th. All right, let's get into some of your questions. I will try to answer what I can. All right, Jaguar, what if a partner doesn't yell, curse, or insult, but instead they lie, gaslight, manipulate, and keep secrets? Is that abuse? I feel like the effects are the same. Okay, so one of the things that I mentioned with the common patterns of verbal abuse is that it can be very subtle. It doesn't have to be yelling or screaming at all, right? So it still could be verbal abuse, but you're saying that they lie, they gaslight, and they manipulate. Absolutely. One of the patterns was manipulation. And so again, that can be for several different reasons. They could have a controlling personality, and that causes them to be manipulative, or, turning the situation around to put the blame on you. That can be a form of verbal abuse, because they're not taking ownership for their role and the part that they are playing. And I think, you kind of answered your own question with the last statement when you said, I feel like the effects are the same. So yeah, how does it make you feel? If it makes you feel that way, then absolutely it's abusive to you. And that needs to be handled immediately. That needs to be dealt with for sure. All right, Veronica, what is your thoughts on smear campaigns or belittling? How do you handle it or stop it? Okay, so Veronica, this is what I don't know. When you say smear campaign, is this your partner or spouse? Is this at work, like with the professional? Because that would be two totally different answers. So because you're watching a Couples Academy show, I am going to assume that this is someone that you are in relationship with, either a spouse or partner. So my thoughts on them, on smear campaigns or belittling, is that it's unacceptable. 100%. How do you handle it? You communicate that it's unacceptable and that you are no longer going to accept it. You will discontinue the conversation if they are belittling. So here's the thing. Here's the scenario. You're in a conversation, starts off well. There's no yelling, fussing, cussing, fighting, whatever. But then throughout the conversation, it may begin to escalate, get a little bit more heated. And then the person begins to say things that are belittling. When you address it right in that moment, okay, stop. I'm not going to allow you to speak to me in this manner. When you can speak to me in a way that is kind and loving, compassionate, whatever word you want to use, then this conversation can continue. But until then, this conversation is over. And you have to be consistent with that. Do not continue to allow anyone to belittle you, because people will only do what you allow them to do. As far as the smear campaign is concerned, you cannot control other people's behavior. You cannot control what they say or what they do. And so I don't know how to stop someone from doing this smear campaign. Like, physically, you can't stop them, but verbally, you can have a conversation and let them know how it affects you, how it makes you feel when they go on these smear campaigns. And if it's someone who really loves and cares about you and they respect you, if they understand what you're saying, the fact that you're telling them that it hurts you and it makes you feel belittled, that should change the behavior in and of itself. And if it doesn't, reach out, get into some counseling, get some help. Let us help you. Okay? Because this, again, can have long-term lasting effects. And we want to make sure that everyone who is connected to Couples Academy has healthy, happy, long-lasting, beautiful relationships and marriages. Okay? Guys, listen. I say this every time. I don't even understand how these 30 minutes go by as fast as they do, but they do. I'm so sorry. We are out of time. Thank you all so much for joining us this morning. Please tune in again tomorrow. Men, get in Foundry. It starts tomorrow. Ladies, sign up for Unearthed, and let's get you guys transformed and on to some healthy, happy relationships. Again, you were watching the Couples Academy show. My name is Lakeisha Hines, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the very near future. Take care. Have a great, great day. And if I don't see you, have a good week. Bye.